Looks like we're live.
Sorry about that.
Nice.
I'm going to turn off my video.
Didn't mean to surprise you. I've just pushed the button to make us go live, so we're back. Tennyson and Gill and Mark Thomas talking about research roundtable, or really the content roundtable. What information should we find to help us start and run our ventures? And this time I'd like to maybe pick up on some of the things we were talking about before with the nature of the sort of people we wanted to hire, the finding the right culture to build our business with, and really try and figure out how, if we're a network of entrepreneurs, how we can share information between us about maybe places to advertise, ways to advertise, maybe do research, share our ideas about, hey, I advertised using these keywords on Facebook and got this sort of response, so that maybe we collect that information and keep track of it and sort of build off each other's work.
Okay, that's, obviously communication is paramount, so secure communications will have to be an immediate thing, so that's the kind of stuff that we should think about first. But I think that an analogy to something we're trying to do would be, I don't like to say it, but organized crime. So, organized criminal organization has to find a way to communicate with itself securely, do things out of the purview of the overarching state that tries to stop or interfere with the things. And how exactly did they do this? How did they become successful in what it was that they did? So I figured this is probably a good area of research study if you wanted to do that. How do they manage to keep loyalty and secrets and all these kinds of things? And maybe that would lead us to some form of non-aggressive ways to emulate what they did.
Okay. If there was, I guess, any hesitation to use them as a case study, there's also resistance movements during war. How did the French resistance communicate during the Second World War? There might be some other academically acceptable means of communication to study that had the same problem.
Yeah, probably good. Gil, did you have any of your own research? Maybe what did you find anything relating to this?
Yeah, I was thinking about this while we're talking. I guess there are things that I've learned as I've been reading about entrepreneurship. Maybe I should put together a little bibliography of things. This sounds silly, but there's certain things like A Good Hard Kick in the Ass by Rob Adams. It's a great book. Or The Martha Rules by Martha Stewart. There are certain books written by entrepreneurs that really teach you what it's, where you should be focusing your energy. And this is kind of a side topic from communication and secure communication, but in the general sphere of resources, if I had known what I know now 10 years ago in terms of things to read and for instance, it took me a long time to figure out what are the good books on marketing research. What kind of gets to the nub of how you write a marketing research questionnaire, and that's grounded in marketing science, because this is a whole field of study. And so maybe we should, this is maybe a topic for the wiki, which is a resource area by subject. A lot of what I think of are books, but just today, it just had never occurred to me to try to use Facebook ads. So,
I'm glad I was able to give the idea out. All right. People in the chat room are complaining that there's a little bit of choppiness. I don't know where the cause of that is or what's going on, but hopefully it'll get cleared up as it goes on.
Yeah. Let me see if there's anything on my side I can shut down. I've got the broadcast running out and 2 signals coming back in. Let me shut down one of those, and I'll rely on someone in the next room to come run in and let me know if there's any problem. So I'll just follow the chat and I'll see if that helps at all.
Okay. All right. So the title of the research roundtable is "What information should we find to help us start and run our ventures?" And so, Gil mentioned a regular entrepreneur book, and I wonder if Gil, maybe you've read How to Win Friends and Influence People, and what would you think of something as basic as that? Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. The thing is that I'm a big virtue ethicist, and it's amazing. You look back in the libertarian literature, and you find these amazing things. I was turned on to Samuel Smiles a few years ago because there's a local libertarian here, Rob Bradley, who has written a book on capitalism and Enron. He used to work at Enron, and it's a kind of an expose of heroic capitalism versus political capitalism. And in that book, he kind of reaches farther back in the tradition. And there's this guy, Samuel Smiles, who wrote a book on self-help, and it's really a whole series of vignettes of actual people in 18th and 19th century England that were entrepreneurs and showed how they developed their virtues and became successful. And all of these things are related. Talking to people and relating to people fairly and doing good turns. I mean, my friend Stefan Kinsella makes a lot of jokes because I'm a fan of people like Ziegler. I like reading. I read a lot of these books on success. Just generally success literature, I'd say. I've gained a lot of Napoleon Hill's books. Things like Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. Yeah.
Yeah, or George Clement Stone's The Success System That Never Fails. They're books on how not to procrastinate. I mean, and all of these things are important.
I got a lot of those on the shelf. I'm still waiting to read one day.
Yeah, exactly. And Sam Smiles wrote a whole book on thrift, which is excellent. And my own philosophy, I really like, there's a modern guy who has a radio program called Dave Ramsey, and he really brings home how you discipline yourself to be thrifty in your own life. I mean, if you're going to be serious about being an entrepreneur, and even if you're not really going to start a venture, but if you're going to do a serious side hobby, let's say you're going to help somebody out to do something, well, it means that you need to arrange your cash flow so that you're throwing off cash on the side every month to support things like buying books that matter, going to conferences, investing in some time and resources that you need to get the things done. And it's all about putting your own economic house in order. And it seems like, how could that be related? Well, it's all related. It's all virtue ethics, So...
that is the philosophy of virtue ethicism, that you can't fully have one virtue without having the other virtues as well. So you're going to be incomplete somewhere if you try and just go one particular direction. You got to have it all. And of course, Sam Smiles' books are available online. If you go to the Gutenberg Project, you can find thrift, you can find self-help, you can find a bunch of the other things that he's written as well.
Now, are any of those uniquely libertarian or anarchist? Aside from sort of the assumption that it's virtuous to not do harm against other people, are any of these written by people familiar with libertarian ethics?
Well,
I
no, but go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, Smiles is really from a time of Victorian England when liberalism, or at least something that passed for liberalism, was kind of taken for granted. It was just, that was how the world was. It was a, I don't want to use the word Whiggish, but I guess it was kind of Whiggish. And that, progress and prosperity and work and this kind of do right by others, it'll be done right by you, put in labor and you will get reward. Those kinds of general liberal principles were things that everybody held and took for granted.
I see we've got a comment in the chat room about whether the sort of regular, typical self-help entrepreneurship stuff, how appropriate that is for some of the more radical counter-economic ideas in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I don't know if I can. When he says counter-economic entrepreneurship, are we talking about black markets?
Let's take that, because that's the extreme case, and I guess part of the problem with that is the mainstream considers it anti-virtuous. You're following a set of virtues that the mainstream is being told are not virtues. I wonder.
Well, and there's a certain amount of Randianism in there, maybe being a heroic capitalist and eschewing sacrifice, at least as sacrifice is decided, defined within the objectivist system. But I think that, I guess I have 2 points. One is most of the things that one can read on being a good businessman or being a good entrepreneur are they're somewhat devoid of ideological content, and even where they have ideological content, they're much more strongly libertarian than you might think. I think that is certainly true of Samuel Smiles. I'd say it's true even of Napoleon Hill in many cases. One of his main, and what Napoleon Hill did was he went and he looked at a bunch of entrepreneurs, and then he trying to distill from it what are the key elements that these people, what are the ideas that these people imbued in order to become successful. And of course persistence is one of them, but always being fair dealing is one of them. Nobody has really gotten ahead from consistently screwing other people, and it's a very libertarian point.
But
and then the other thing,
economics, you have to worry about cases where you may be acting virtuously, and I'm thinking about weed dealers up in a little mountain community I've lived in. They may have been treating their customers well and have never harmed anyone, and then they get busted and dragged through the mud, and all the good virtue they've used to preserve their reputation gets slandered in the press. So I wonder.
So I've never really been a fan of people like Ayn Rand. I haven't really read a lot of stuff by her. I've read her nonfiction, but not her fiction. But in some ways, I kind of like the idea. I kind of think that libertarian entrepreneurs need to be kind of like Superman or Batman, where what you're doing is, the bad guys get to play all the dirty tricks. And we're the good guys, and we can't play good dirty tricks. So, it's an Agora conference, right? And it's all about
the
SEK3 and everything, right? But I'm basically, I really I think that white markets are where it's at, and that we can win the fight even being disadvantaged. We were talking about. Oh, go ahead.
Saying that, counter-economic activity, like the Konkin idea of counter-economics, is using the Misesian Rothbardian definition of economics, which is the sum of all human actions, essentially. And if you wanted to use them as SCN minimizer for economics, which is the study of the